In the meantime, the chip rally has been absolutely incredible, right?
If you think of what makes up the semiconductor sector of the S&P 500, it's Nvidia, Broadcom, Micron. Think about it. It's chips and it's memory. And there has been no hotter area of the U.S. economy than chips and memory. And if you look through the list, just the last couple of days, you see Intel and Texas Instruments, Qualcomm, all these names that are right in the thick of everything that's going on with AI. So yeah, not surprised that some of these stocks have had pretty incredible runs as we start getting into first quarter earnings season. It's going to be, like I said, a lot of them are still to come. We're still about a month from Nvidia's earnings. So yeah, there's big things on the horizon when these companies start to put out earnings, Nicole.
Yeah, and look, I said I woke up this morning and saw Intel up double digits. It was up 23% early this morning, and I know Intel has been an incredible run up. Listen, the 52-week high was $70. You're going to break that and have new highs again on Intel. But we are seeing the Dow being the laggard, but it is not because of Intel being down. So I wanted to just clarify that in case I may have said it that way to folks. Anyway. So there's your look at Intel. What an incredible run it has been. Okay, moving on as we talk about what has been going on with the ceasefire and the talks. President Trump earlier in the week had said maybe Friday. And then he said, look, there seems to be a mix in leadership. They need to sort of coordinate their efforts. And then there was even talk that maybe something would happen today, and that turned things around. Where do we stand? What are you hearing?
The timeline is very interesting because remember, it was late yesterday that President Trump came out and talked about extending the ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon for 3 weeks. That may have been the precursor to what we saw about 7:30 Eastern time this morning, Nicole, when the announcement came out that Iran foreign minister was expected to be in Islamabad Friday. And then about 15 minutes later, we got confirmation from Pakistan that a second round of talks was expected. Then about 15 minutes later, about 8 o'clock Eastern time, we got Iran delegation heading to Pakistan led by their foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, or I don't know how to pronounce that, sorry. But their foreign minister is leading the delegation. So we got good news. That turned futures in crude oil from higher to lower. They've now drifted a bit higher, or they're moving all over the board. When we came on the air, they were higher. Now they're lower again. Futures got up a little higher than where they are now. They've drifted back lower. Now they're firming up. So the markets are volatile to start the day, but geopolitics and headlines are running here. And here's the latest breaking. Now it looks like the Kremlin is announcing that Vladimir Putin may come to Miami for the G20 in December. That's a big announcement because he basically wasn't invited, but they hoped he might come. Now Putin, it's the Kremlin saying may come to the G20 in Miami. So hopefully it's not just for the weather, Nicole.
Oh my goodness, so much to take in.
Worth of upside that we're seeing right now in the S&P 500, which isn't up by much, is coming from Nvidia, Intel, and AMD. What does that tell you?
Well, it tells me that this relative strength area of the market is going to continue pushing the market higher, especially due to the strength that we're seeing. I mean, 3-4% moves are really strong. And so what that means is that if and when we see a pullback in SMH and we start to see SMH trend higher again, that's going to be the first spot that I'll look to buy.
Okay, and so, as far as the SOX is concerned, I mean, many people have been talking about how, this 17-day winning streak is obviously a record-setting run here, but in overbought levels. I mean, is there a risk from a trading perspective that we could see some sort of mean reversion on no news, particularly going into a very consequential week for some of these hyperscalers?
Absolutely. And that's why I've been really reducing my short-term positions, especially options positions right now, because we are extended and this has been a historical rally. And especially when you get into the Magnificent Seven earnings week, that can really be a time where we see a lot of volatility and a pullback. So certainly the moves have been absolutely amazing. But I do look to reduce short-term positions at these kind of extensions. And I try to wait for pullbacks to about the 8 EMA or the 21 EMA on the daily chart. But of course, with the strength of the market, it may be a little while until we see that.
Okay. Obviously, what we heard from Intel, this was going to be sort of the next test, people were saying, for the chip trade and whether we would continue to see this record-winning run here. Obviously, what we heard from them around the CPU demand has now given the green light for people to hit the buy button, particularly when you look at, obviously, shares in AMD rally. What is it that we heard from Intel, which is why we're seeing such moves in sympathy today across the space?
Well, we're seeing continually increasing demand, especially that's spilling over into the CPU market. And so with the reaction in the stock, typically what I look for is what was the expected move on the stock over earnings and what is it actually doing? And it had about a $6 or $7 expected move. So what we're seeing is almost twice what was expected, which tells us that investors were really surprised by this move, and it's going to continue helping push the semiconductor space higher. Obviously, you're seeing this huge move with AMD, which is typical for AMD to move higher during the pre-earnings timeframe, but this is a pretty historical and major move to see in AMD. So what it tells us is that earnings so far have been strong. The market loves the semiconductors right here, and this will continue to be a great place for me to focus, especially as we go into Nvidia and Broadcom earnings.
Yesterday, I had a great conversation with one of the guests who was talking about some of the Mag 7 names and saying, look, you can't, it's intangible. It's not, you don't look at PE ratios when you're looking at the Mag 7. And he said, you look at other things like sentiment and things like that. And for those Mag 7 names, people have been buying on the dips and tech has been bouncing back, I guess, the last few weeks, right? Then you have consumer sentiment, and we're waiting on that print. Any thoughts there?
Well, the University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment, which comes out twice a month, the first time it comes out, all the respondents are 420. The second time it comes out, it's 600 respondents. So it's not a big, sample size. It's soft data, so it tends to be very volatile. And earlier this month, it dropped to 47.6. So, and the year ahead, inflation expectations got up to 4.8%. Is that an overreaction? Of course it is. But that's what soft data or sentiment data gets you. So I don't know if we should worry about it. I don't think the sample size is big enough. There's 50,000 students at University of Michigan. Why do they only have 420 and 600 respondents? I don't think the market should trade off this sentiment, but it usually does, Nicole.
Yeah, unbelievable. And we're, as I talked about the Mag 7, we'll have more on Amazon providing Meta with chips. We'll look at that story too a lot. And next week, Wednesday, Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, Thursday, Apple. And then on the 20th of May, Nvidia.
Were there levels on the 10-year, specific levels that you were worried about? I've heard people were saying, like, if it goes over 450, then we have an issue, and it didn't. So everyone was more sanguine.
Well, we didn't get back above 450 this year. We got close to it.
Right.
We actually put that, we'll take credit for that, good and bad. We put that 450 number out a couple of years ago. Yeah. And then all of a sudden now it became kind of a thing. Okay, I actually worry more about bond volatility, because that affects liquidity, okay, and that really is a bigger driver for asset prices. Now, if we were to go through 450, it also depends on why we're going through 450, okay? If it's because growth is spectacular and inflation's under control and the Fed doesn't have to raise rates, I think that's okay. But if we're going up because inflation's a problem again and then the Fed has to get hawkish, then we have an issue. So right now, I'm not worried about rates. I don't think that's going to be an issue for the market. Valuations are totally fine here, 21.5 times earnings, given the earnings picture. And that's been our thesis all year. We haven't wavered on that, right? That this earnings recovery is a lot stronger than people think.
I hadn't thought about the fact that you made that 450 call a while ago. Does that mean every time the market has sold off because that people have called you up and been like, Mike, this is all your fault?
No,
Why did you put this in our heads?
Actually, no, they take credit for it instead.
Okay, fair enough.
No, I'm teasing, but like that's the game, right? It's like once you, and by the way, I figure out things from other people too, where it's like we identify something that works and then the market kind of trains itself.
Right.
I don't think, to Matt's question though, I don't think that level of 450 is nearly as important today okay, because of the earnings picture as it was, say, 2 years ago when earnings were very tepid. The bigger issue, the bigger risk, if there is one right now, would be if bond volatility were to pick up again, which is probably more a reflection of the conflict in Iran or some other external event. Like private credit starts, percolating again on the negative side, something like that. I think would be much more of a headwind for equity multiples than just a level of rates.
Right.
Yeah, earnings expectation. I keep looking at this EEO page on the Bloomberg terminal. S&P earnings 12 months out, 328 for the blended. It's like 350 already, and it's just, that's 23, 24% growth.
Right, there's a simple measure. Just look at NTM, rolling NTM earnings per share. Whenever that's going up, which it has been, it's very hard to see the market
Does it not make a difference, though, that like so much of it, and I've been talking about this because our MLive team has been doing great work, it's like all Micron. So many of the earnings upgrades have been Micron. It's very concentrated, that.
Well, it's actually not true. I mean, that was the case last year.
Right.
The earnings, the broadening of the earnings story has actually been very impressive, something that people have underestimated. So I'll give you an example. The median stock within the Russell 3000, okay, so this is like the 1,500th largest company in the broader market, is now growing earnings close to 14% year over year. So that broadening story, I think, is still underappreciated, which is why we want to go back to some of these areas that got pummeled when oil prices went up. So, for example, consumer goods or some of the industrial stocks. Financials is an area we doubled down on like 3 weeks ago.
This morning, KG, and obviously we are keeping tabs of what these reports are saying around the potential for another round of US-Iran talks this weekend. Ben Emmons saying that it appears they've been asked to keep Friday to Sunday open for an anticipated second round of negotiations. So it seems like we could have some optimism going into the weekend. What's your assessment of how we're looking this morning?
Yeah, that might be the case. I mean, at the end of the day, what we are seeing move the market this morning has been the semiconductor space. I think if you're looking at the geopolitical risk, we have seen every single day this week, Sam, about 30 minutes to an hour before the equity open, optimistic tone coming from Pakistan regarding these ceasefire talks and a potential final resolution to this matter. And it has not been able to materialize. Maybe that's going to be over the weekend. Maybe we do see some form of a resolution here. But I think you still have to be a little bit skeptical about that at this point in time. If we look at the daily chart or even the 5-day, 15-minute chart, what we have seen this week is a consolidation period where we have had around 100 point to 110 point range to the upside or downside for the S&P 500. Really haven't gone anywhere at the moment here. And I think this is going to really kind of break out potentially more to the upside rather than the downside if we do get some good news over the weekend, as well as earnings next week from the Max 7 names. If they're able to obviously beat and exceed the street's expectations, it might be enough to kind of break us out of this range. But we are flagging out in any type of escalation that we do see over the weekend that could also, once again, kind of pull us back to the downside here. So I would say that we have been optimistic. But it just seems like it's a coincidence every single day we get the same type of story coming out from Pakistan, and just nothing that really materializes at the moment.
We're at the mercy of these headlines, and as Claudia Sam put it this morning, I'm old enough to remember a week ago we were celebrating the Strait being completely open. So obviously the difference a week can make, KG, but we've still managed to hit records, suffice to say. I know a lot of that, as you point out, has been on everybody putting their arms around the sort of more growthier parts of the market, the AI trade as well, from here to Taiwan and Japan. Let's get through this macro data from UMISH, the Consumer Confidence Survey. Looks like things have recovered somewhat as far as sentiment, given the ceasefire, but I mean, we are still looking at a number that's come off previous months. Just walk us through the details here.
Sure. So if we're looking at consumer sentiment from the University of Michigan sentiment data, that came in at 49.8. Street was looking for 47.6. So a little bit actually of a better improvement than what the street was actually expecting there. Current conditions also better than the street's expectations, coming in at 52.5. Street was looking for 50.1. And if you're looking at the 1-year inflation expectations, that's sitting at 4.7%. Previously was actually at 4.8%, so a slight downtick, but obviously still at elevated levels here. So you actually like to see this type of positivity, or maybe a bottoming within this data set, because the positivity is still not really there. when you're looking at the overall totality of the data, but it has been able to try to stabilize here, at least for now. And as we work through these higher energy prices and maybe some other inflationary pressures, and we are able to see maybe a light at the end of the tunnel, these expectations and the sentiment itself could obviously change for the better, and that could also lead to increased consumer spending. If not, and we do see maybe an escalation of hostilities, that's where we could see these expectations and the sentiment obviously reversing course and getting even worse from these current levels.
Okay, yeah, it really felt like it had hit rock bottom at one point over the last few weeks. So at least things are improving somewhat. We'll have to keep an eye on it as, of course, anything can change. But just walk us through what you're seeing as far as some of these latest headlines, particularly as it pertains to the Strait of Hormuz and also just the subsequent reaction we're seeing in WTI right now, trading at 95, just a smidge below that bucks a barrel at this stage.
Yeah, we're still seeing a lot of volatility in the crude oil complex. I think if you're looking at the last 24 hours, some news headlines that stuck out to me, obviously what we talked about this morning, Pakistan stating that we will have maybe a meeting and potentially some good news over the weekend. Obviously, that's putting a little bit of pressure to the downside for crude oil. On the back of that, the other story is that Iran may have laid more mines in the Strait of Hormuz, which is obviously going to be an escalatory measure, which is kind of stabilizing these prices. If you're looking at this 3-year weekly chart, we have seen a little bit of an advance, or at least a stalling out for now. Now, we could see it crush even more to the downside if we get some good news. I would look at the $75.50 level as your next major area of support for WTI. And then to the upside, I think there's still a possibility that you do get to that 120 level. We have seen inventory levels for diesel and jet fuel really drop dramatically. Oil on water right now, if you're looking at oil on water, we call that floating storage, obviously at depressed lows as well. So the physical market is still tightened up at this point in time. The futures is really a little bit more disconnected probably this week than what we've seen throughout the whole conflict. There's about a $45 to $50 spread between spot and the futures market. But we are seeing the oscillator starting to roll over. So maybe this is the peak, who knows? But I think there's probably still more potential for an upside move or retracement back to the upside than downside here, just given the events that we have throughout this week, actually.